Welcome to the Discourse Analyzer AI Toolkit, where articles come alive. You're hearing the audio version of our article. For the full text and an interactive experience, check out the link in the description below. Interact with any section using our AI assistant to enhance your understanding. Let's explore.
Methodological approaches to cognitivism in discourse analysis. The exploration of cognitivism in discourse analysis employs a variety of methodological approaches to unpack the complex interplay between cognitive processes and discourse. Cognitive ethnography delves into how individual cognition is influenced by social interactions and cultural settings, providing nuanced insights into the communal aspects of cognitive processes. Experimental methods isolate and examine the effects of specific discourse features on cognitive responses, offering a more controlled investigation into the cognitive mechanisms at play. Meanwhile, the integration of quantitative data aids in identifying broad patterns and testing hypotheses regarding the cognitive underpinnings of discourse, enhancing the generalizability of findings. Together, these approaches furnish a comprehensive toolkit for analyzing the dynamic relationship between cognition and discourse across different contexts and applications. 1. Cognitive ethnography in discourse studies. Cognitive ethnography in discourse studies represents a methodological approach that combines the rich, detailed observations of ethnography with an interest in understanding the cognitive processes underlying discourse. This approach aims to investigate how cognitive phenomena, such as perception, memory, thought processes, and problem-solving, are manifested in and influenced by social interactions and cultural practices. By situating cognitive processes within their natural social contexts, cognitive ethnography provides valuable insights into the intricate ways in which human cognition and discourse are interwoven with cultural norms and practices. Let's delve into how cognitive ethnography is applied in discourse studies and the benefits of this approach. 1. Application of cognitive ethnography in discourse studies. In-depth fieldwork. Cognitive ethnography involves extensive fieldwork, where researchers immerse themselves in the community or setting they are studying. This immersion allows for a nuanced understanding of the social and cultural contexts in which discourse occurs and how these contexts influence cognitive processes. Naturalistic observation of discourse practices. Researchers observe and record natural discourse in its authentic contexts, ranging from everyday conversations to specific communicative practices in institutions like schools, workplaces, or religious gatherings. The goal is to understand how cognitive processes such as understanding, remembering, and decision-making unfold in real time during social interactions. Participant interviews and think-aloud protocols. To gain insights into the cognitive underpinnings of discourse, cognitive ethnographers may conduct interviews with participants, asking them to reflect on their thought processes during particular interactions. Think-aloud protocols, where participants verbalize their thoughts while engaged in a task or conversation, can also provide direct access to cognitive processes. Analysis of cultural artifacts and environmental cues. This involves examining the material culture and environmental features of the setting, such as texts, symbols, tools, and technology, to understand how they mediate cognitive processes and discourse practices. 2. Benefits of cognitive ethnography in discourse studies. Holistic understanding of cognition and discourse. By examining cognitive processes within the context of social interactions and cultural practices, cognitive ethnography offers a holistic view of how discourse is both shaped by and shapes cognition. Identification of cultural and contextual influences. This approach highlights the role of cultural norms, values, and practices in shaping cognitive processes related to discourse, providing insights into how societal factors influence communication and understanding. Rich, contextualized data. The detailed observational and interview data collected through cognitive ethnography provide a rich, contextualized understanding of discourse practices, offering depth and nuance that quantitative methods alone may not capture. Innovative insights into discourse processes. Cognitive ethnography can reveal unexpected ways in which cognition and discourse intersect, leading to innovative insights into communication practices, problem solving, and knowledge construction in various social settings. Informing educational and organizational practices. By uncovering the cognitive processes involved in learning, communication, and collaboration in natural settings, cognitive ethnography can inform the development of more effective educational strategies and organizational practices. Cognitive ethnography in discourse studies offers a powerful methodology for exploring the complex interplay between cognitive processes, discourse, and culture. By situating cognition within its natural social contexts, researchers can gain a deeper understanding of the ways in which human thought and communication are embedded in and influenced by cultural practices and social interactions. 2. Methodological approaches to cognitivism in discourse analysis. Experimental methods in cognitive discourse analysis (CODA) involve the systematic manipulation and control of variables to investigate how cognitive processes influence discourse production, comprehension, and interaction. These methods allow researchers to infer causality and unravel the cognitive mechanisms underpinning discourse phenomena. By employing experimental designs, scholars can explore a wide array of questions related to attention, memory, perception, and reasoning as they relate to language use and discourse. Here's an overview of how experimental methods are applied in cognitive discourse analysis, along with specific design considerations. 1. Key experimental designs in cognitive discourse analysis. Randomized controlled trials, RCTs. In RCTs, participants are randomly assigned to experimental or control groups to test the effect of a specific discourse feature, e.g., metaphor usage, narrative structure, on cognitive outcomes, e.g., comprehension, recall. This design helps to ensure that any observed differences between groups are due to the manipulation and not other variables. Factorial designs. These designs allow researchers to investigate the effects of two or more independent variables, e.g., the complexity of language and the presence of visual aids, on a dependent variable, e.g., reader comprehension levels. Factorial designs can reveal interactions between variables, showing how the effect of one variable depends on the level of another. Pre-post studies. In these designs, cognitive measures are taken from the same participants before and after exposure to a particular type of discourse or linguistic intervention. This allows researchers to assess changes in cognitive processes or abilities as a direct result of the intervention. Eye-tracking experiments. Eye-tracking technology provides insights into cognitive processes during reading or viewing multimodal discourse. By tracking where, how long, and in what sequence participants' gaze points occur, researchers can infer aspects of attention, processing depth, and comprehension. Event-related potentials, ERPs. This neuroimaging technique measures brain responses that are the direct result of specific cognitive processes triggered by linguistic stimuli. ERPs can reveal the temporal dynamics of language processing and are particularly useful for understanding how the brain deals with ambiguity, syntax, and semantics in real time. 2. Considerations for experimental design. Operationalization of variables. Clearly defining and operationalizing independent, manipulated, and dependent, measured, variables is crucial. For instance, if studying the impact of narrative coherence on memory, researchers must establish what constitutes coherence and how memory will be assessed. Selection of participants. Participant selection should consider factors such as language proficiency, age, and educational background, which might influence cognitive processing and discourse interaction. Control for confounding variables. Experimental designs must control for potential confounding variables, factors other than the independent variable that could affect the outcome. This may involve using control groups, counterbalancing order effects, or statistically controlling for participants' baseline abilities. Ecological validity. While experimental control is a strength of this method, researchers must also consider the ecological validity of their studies, or how well the findings can be generalized to real-world discourse processing. This involves a careful balance between experimental control and the naturalistic representation of discourse. 3. Applications of experimental methods in CODA. Experimental methods in CODA have been applied to a wide range of topics, including but not limited to understanding how different discourse structures affect memory and recall, exploring the cognitive effects of persuasive and rhetorical strategies in political speech or advertising, investigating the role of metaphor and figurative language in shaping conceptual understanding and attitudes, examining the impact of multimedia and multimodal texts on comprehension and engagement. Experimental methods provide powerful tools for uncovering the cognitive mechanisms underlying discourse processes. By carefully designing experiments and interpreting their results within the broader context of cognitive and discourse studies, researchers can contribute significantly to our understanding of the complex relationship between language, cognition, and communication. 3. Integrating quantitative data in cognitive discourse studies. Integrating quantitative data in cognitive discourse studies represents a methodological approach that complements qualitative insights with numerical evidence, enhancing the robustness and generalizability of findings. This integration is particularly useful in uncovering patterns, correlations, and potential causal relationships between cognitive processes and discourse phenomena. By employing statistical analyses, researchers can systematically examine how discourse elements influence cognitive responses across larger samples, providing a more objective basis for interpretations. Here's how quantitative data can be utilized to support cognitive analyses of discourse patterns. 1. Collection of quantitative data. Surveys and questionnaires. These tools can gather data on participants' perceptions, attitudes, and self-reported cognitive responses to various discourse types. Surveys might measure aspects like engagement, comprehension difficulty, or recall accuracy. Behavioral measures. Data on reading times, response accuracies, or choice preferences in tasks involving discourse stimuli can offer insights into cognitive processing efficiency, decision-making strategies, and attention allocation. Neurological and physiological measures. Technologies such as fMRI, functional magnetic resonance imaging, EEG, electroencephalography, and eye tracking generate quantitative data on brain activity, gaze patterns, and other physiological responses to discourse, revealing underlying cognitive processes. 2. Analyzing quantitative data in cognitive discourse studies. Statistical analysis of language features. Quantitative analyses can identify the frequency and distribution of specific linguistic features, e.g., pronouns, modal verbs, passive constructions, across different discourse types or genres. This can help to link certain patterns of language use with cognitive effects, such as ease of processing or memory retention. Correlational studies. These studies examine the relationship between variables, such as the correlation between the complexity of discourse structures and readers' comprehension levels. Correlational analyses can uncover patterns that suggest how different aspects of discourse interact with cognitive processes. Experimental data analysis. In experiments manipulating discourse features, statistical tests, e.g., ANOVA, regression analysis, can determine the effects of these manipulations on cognitive outcomes, such as recall accuracy, inference making, or emotional responses. Meta-analyses. By aggregating and statistically analyzing results from multiple studies, researchers can assess the overall effectiveness of certain discourse strategies or interventions across different contexts and populations, providing a higher level of evidence. 3. Implications and applications. Educational discourse. Quantitative analyses can evaluate the cognitive impacts of different instructional designs, multimedia materials, or text simplification strategies on learning outcomes, informing evidence-based educational practices. Health communication. By analyzing how various framing strategies, message formats, or readability levels influence comprehension, recall, and behavior change, researchers can design more effective health communication interventions. Media studies. Quantitative data can shed light on how narrative structures, news framing, or argumentation styles in media discourse affect public opinion, knowledge acquisition, and emotional responses.
Legal and forensic discourse. Studies might explore how the language used in legal documents, courtroom interactions, or police interrogations impacts understanding, decision-making, or memory recall among jurors, witnesses, or suspects. Integrating quantitative data into cognitive discourse studies provides a solid empirical foundation for understanding the interaction between discourse structures and cognitive processes.
This methodological approach enables researchers to derive insights that are not only theoretically informed but also empirically validated, offering a comprehensive view of how language functions in cognitive and social contexts.
Conclusion.
The integration of cognitive ethnography, experimental methods, and quantitative data analysis in discourse studies offers a multifaceted approach to understanding the intricate relationship between cognition and discourse within cultural contexts. Cognitive ethnography provides a deep, nuanced understanding of how cognitive processes manifest in naturalistic settings, revealing the cultural and contextual influences on discourse practices. Experimental methods contribute rigor and precision, allowing researchers to isolate and test the effects of specific discourse elements on cognitive processes.
Quantitative data analysis, meanwhile, adds a layer of objectivity and generalizability, uncovering patterns and correlations that link discourse features to cognitive outcomes across larger populations. Together, these methodological approaches enrich our comprehension of discourse's cognitive dimensions.
They enable scholars to examine the complex ways in which language, thought, and social practices are interwoven, offering insights into how discourse shapes and is shaped by the human mind within its cultural milieu. By combining in-depth qualitative observations with systematic experimental control and quantitative analysis, researchers can address nuanced questions about the cognitive underpinnings of discourse and its role in communication, education, health, media, and legal contexts. This interdisciplinary integration not only advances our theoretical understanding of discourse but also informs practical applications, guiding the development of strategies that enhance comprehension, learning, and effective communication across diverse domains. Frequently asked questions. What is cognitive ethnography and its purpose in discourse studies? Cognitive ethnography is a research approach that combines ethnographic methods with a focus on understanding cognitive processes within their natural social and cultural contexts. It aims to explore how cognitive phenomena like perception, memory, and problem-solving are manifested in, and influenced by, social interactions and cultural practices, providing insights into the intricate relationship between human cognition, discourse, and culture. How is cognitive ethnography applied in discourse studies? It involves in-depth fieldwork, naturalistic observation of discourse practices, participant interviews, think-aloud protocols, and analysis of cultural artifacts and environmental cues. This approach allows researchers to understand how cognitive processes unfold in real time during social interactions and how they are shaped by cultural contexts. What are the benefits of cognitive ethnography in discourse studies? Cognitive ethnography offers a holistic understanding of cognition and discourse, highlighting cultural and contextual influences, providing rich, contextualized data, and revealing innovative insights into discourse processes. It can inform more effective educational and organizational practices by uncovering the cognitive underpinnings of learning, communication, and collaboration. What role do experimental methods play in cognitive discourse analysis? Experimental methods allow researchers to systematically manipulate variables to investigate how cognitive processes influence discourse production, comprehension, and interaction. These methods enable the exploration of causality and the unraveling of cognitive mechanisms underpinning discourse phenomena, such as the effects of narrative structures on memory or the cognitive impact of rhetorical strategies. What are key experimental designs used in cognitive discourse analysis? Key designs include randomized controlled trials, RCTs, factorial designs, pre-post studies, eye-tracking experiments, and event-related potentials, ERPs. These designs vary in how they manipulate and measure discourse-related variables, offering different insights into cognitive processes involved in discourse. How are experimental findings applied in cognitive discourse analysis? Experimental findings can inform a wide range of topics, such as the cognitive effects of persuasive speech, the impact of metaphor on conceptual understanding, and the influence of multimedia texts on engagement and comprehension. They provide a basis for understanding the cognitive mechanisms that drive discourse processes in various contexts. Why integrate quantitative data in cognitive discourse studies? Integrating quantitative data enhances the robustness and generalizability of findings. It complements qualitative insights with numerical evidence, uncovering patterns, correlations, and potential causal relationships between cognitive processes and discourse phenomena, and provides an objective basis for interpretations. How is quantitative data collected and analyzed in cognitive discourse studies? Data can be collected via surveys, questionnaires, behavioral measures, and neurological, physiological measures. Analysis may involve statistical analysis of language features, correlational studies, experimental data analysis, and meta-analyses to determine the effects of discourse on cognitive outcomes. What implications do these methodological approaches have for practical applications? Insights gained from these methodologies can inform educational strategies, health communication, media studies, and legal discourse by evaluating the cognitive impacts of different discourse structures and strategies. They offer evidence-based guidance for improving comprehension, engagement, and effective communication across various fields.